Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for the invitation. It is really a pleasure. As you may know, I don't like the online very much. Actually, I despise it. But given the circumstances and I cannot travel, I think that's the second best. But we have second best in ethics and academic integrity as well, as I'll explain. Let me first explain why I chose one of the best, I think, dialogues by Plato, Protagoras. Protagoras was a well-known at the time, 432, well-known sophist or philosopher or rhetorician or wise man. And he was well known and he was traveling around Greece and was giving lectures, academic lectures. I shouldn't say post-secondary lectures. I want to use modern vocabulary. So was at the highest possible level. And he was going around and was giving lectures. And Socrates at the time was relatively young. And they had this debate, this dialogue, this symposium around 432 BCE. Just to put everything in context, this is almost 2,500 years ago. You have to think what was going on in the rest of the world, in the rest of Europe, in Asia, in the United States, in America, to understand the context, the historical context of what was taking on in Athens. Why was Athens such a place? And why we call ourselves the Athens Institute. Athens was a place, not because they have different human beings. I do believe that all human beings are the same. But they had something that was very, very important. They had freedom of speech. And that was very important at the time. And you can see in the dialogue, they question everything. And this freedom of speech is, I think, what made Athens great at the time. Okay, let me start why I chose Protagoras, because it's the best dialogue that explains the education system. And as part of the education system, it explains how should professors at all levels of education should behave. And of course, as part of that, they define what they think or what they thought at the time was ethical behavior. Let me first define, because I like to define what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the academic world. Who is the academic world? Students, parents. Can you see my slides? Okay, professors, researchers, administrators, funders, donors, publishers, and society at large. So it's not only the professors, because a lot of people, they concentrate only on professors. But sometimes it's more important to understand that there are the students' behavior as well, that is unethical. And I'm not talking about cheating only. I'm not talking about other things as well. Asking someone to write a PhD thesis for them. It happens all over the world. Or a master thesis, and many more that, publishers, donors, funders, all of these people should be questioned about their ethics. All of this, they engage into studying, teaching, researching, administering, the administration, managing, publishing, advising, and more. So when I say I'm not going to concentrate only, I'm concentrating only to the academics, but in the back of your mind, you should always have that it's students and all these stakeholders, as we call them, that they are here to be questioned, if you want to use a Socrates term. You should also keep in mind that I'm an economist, a business economist, an administrator. So whenever I read the ancient text and you will see it right away when I present my lecture today, I look at it from an economic business perspective. I try to find something there that might be useful to the business economics profession and management profession, and not so much to the philologist, and not so much to the people that deal with classical studies. So if there is someone that has done classics, might find my interpretation of Protagoras, which I think, because I have some people that read my paper, that is different. I don't want to say unique, but it's different. So I emphasize the economics and business, and I have written many papers that analyze the ancient Greek thought from a business, economic, management perspective. Okay, why do we teach? Why we do what we do? It's obvious in the dialogue for money and other fringe benefits. If we don't do it for money and we do it just because, as Socrates, even Socrates that says, I'm teaching without fees, he was getting, if you read other dialogues, he was getting money from his friends. He had fringe benefits. So whenever money is involved, then unethical behavior comes. So this is obvious in Protagoras dialogue. As I said before, professors may ask students for money or other things. It's the sexual harassment issue, I'm gonna say it once and then I forgot it. It's a very important issue. It affects all, but it goes both ways. You can have professors sexually harassing the students, but the students sexually harassing the professors. And since I've been teaching in 3 different countries for 40 years, I can tell you that this is true. So it's very important to keep that in mind. Not only we try to make the students the innocent part, it's not the innocent part, and the professors the guilty part. It's both parts, and depends. Now, many people think that because, and it's obvious in the dialogues as well, think that because we are educated, that somehow this by itself makes us ethical. This is not true. A lot of people, especially from the literature, like Hugo, for example, and many others, John Stuart Mill, the philosopher, they believe that if people get education, then all the crimes will disappear. This is not true. Or if you want crime, it's only a small part of unethical behavior. It's only a small part. But in 1920, if I'm not mistaken, in 1939, a paper was published that distinguished between blue-collar crime and white-collar crime. So now we know that a lot of educated people, they commit crimes, that's immoral behavior, but it's of a different kind, but still is a crime. So getting an education does not guarantee the society that you have ethical behavior. And this vindicates Socrates, as I would say, versus Protagoras, because Socrates believed something like that as well. Now, as I mentioned, the discussion about academic integrity does not involve only crimes, but there are other things as well: virtue, honesty, truth, prudence, wisdom, empathy, sympathy, bravery. All these words are copy-paste from this dialogue. Let me say something as a footnote. Since I have the privilege to be able to read the ancient Greek text, I can tell you, and I wrote a paper about Homer about that. I used a tree analysis. How you interpret, I'm sure it's the same thing in Slovenian anyway, any language, how you interpret a word, it might change completely the meaning of the word. Take, for example, the word bravery or virtue itself. Sometimes you will see in the dialogue, the virtue has many meanings, as I will show it, and as it is discussed in Plato's Protagoras. These are the two guys that I'm talking about. On your left, on my left, actually, it's Protagoras. I have his dates there, and to the right is Socrates. The dialogue that I'm talking about took place 432. So Socrates was relatively young, relative to Protagoras, young, and he was a star. Protagoras, he was a star, a coming star. Protagoras was already a star and well known. So this debate, it was between a young student, if you want, and an old academic. Now, let me say something, and you will be surprised. I want to emphasize this. I do believe that the difference between ancient Athens and modern Slovenian or modern Athens is only the freedom and nothing else. And the system of education is exactly the same today as it was in ancient Athens. Let me present it. It is explained in Protagoras, in the dialogue. All students, a footnote. Education, you will not be surprised, was only for the rich families, all levels of education. It is today, if you look at the world around, people cannot afford to go to school for two reasons. One reason is the opportunity cost of going to school, because I remember in the 1960s in my village, many children, smart children, cannot go to school because they had to assist the family. And of course, if you pay for the school, you pay fees, poor families cannot do that. Exactly that was the situation in ancient Athens. So when I say the education system of ancient Athens is exactly the system that was for rich people. And as for rich societies, modern societies, of course, more people can afford to send their children to school. Let me etymologically explain what we mean by school. School is a ancient Greek word. You know what it means? It means free time. So if you don't have free time, you cannot go to school. So if you work, in other words, you cannot go to school. So scholi, it's leisure time in Greek. School, you can go to school only if you have free time. You will see there, I made this table. It's not, this table is not in Protagoras. I made it up. So you can see, but it's explained. So we have preschool, and this was taking place in the house. I'll show you a rich guy's house. We had basic school education, was outside the house. We had 2 years of the army, and there they learned their obligation, becoming good citizens. We had, after the army, we had two, as it's in modern time, if you are relatively poor, still a free citizen in Athens, you can go and do a technique, learn a trade, a profession. I'll show you with examples. And of course, if you are very rich, you can do academic education, what we call today university, if you want. So it's exactly the same system that we have today in Athens, in the United States, in Canada, everywhere in the world. And I mentioned these countries because, especially in Canada, because I taught there. Now, let me show you some pictures that, if you want, supports what I have here. This is a rich house, actually a rich family's house in downtown Athens. You can still find remnants under the Parthenon, under the Acropolis Hill or Parthenon. Inside the house, of course, there were the family. I have 4 images. The top left image is a family. You can see the old guy, you can see the children, you can see the couple. Now, look at the right and tell me if you can tell the difference between what we have in modern time. Look at the child where it stands and the mother. So they had all the amenities. The difference, of course, is the technology. So women were raising the children. Now, women, the rich families' women, they had their own room. So there, they learn things. And you will see the 2 images. It was called Women's Quarter. You can see what they learn, looming, for example. And of course, the mother of the rich families was responsible to teach both the boys until they become 7 years old and the girls. Now, there is a controversy whether the girls went to outside the house to different schools. In Sparta, they did it. In Athens, it's very controversial. And look at this girl that is dancing, the young girl that is dancing, and someone plays the flute. Look at the image is amazing, the style of the girl that is dancing. It's like flying. And how the guy that painted it, shows it. Now, I'm going now to the second, which is going to school. You will see two pictures here. To the left, when they go to school, they learn three things: grammar, read and write; second, music; and third, gymnastics. I'll come to the gymnastics. So you will see the two children here. One child learns how to read and write. You will see it here. And of course, this is a pedagogue. This is, you had someone controlling everything, supervising everything. It was a very good managed school. And to the right, I put the right the same, but look at this teacher here. I need the pen here. Look at this. It looks, if you look at this here, it looks like a computer, a laptop. It's amazing. You see, you cannot tell if this is a laptop or something. I mean, it's not a laptop, I know, but it looks like a laptop. And the third of the elementary high school is the gymnastics. So they had this special room where they did the gymnastics. And then this, you're not gonna believe, but it's an ancient gymnasium. It's a whole, where you can see the running corridors. You will see rooms around here that they were taking place, lectures as well, apart from gymnastics. I mentioned about studying different trades. I have here a list. By the way, my paper has been uploaded. This presentation is based upon the paper, so you will find all the details, because in 30 or 35 minutes, I cannot say all the details. So you have different professions that you can learn. Look at the barber, for example. You have merchants, you have medical doctors, you have perfumers, anything that you can imagine that even that we have today, they had in ancient times. And now we come to the academic education. The academic education was taking place in schools like Socrates, like the Plato's Academy and Aristotle's Lyceum. You will see here how was the then and now, how was the Plato's. Now it's still, you will see the remnants, and to the left, how was in the old times. That was a university. It was an academy and a Lyceum. It's like a university. How was in the Aristotle school? The Aristotle school was there for 1,000 years. Okay, it's not just, and how it is now. And they had a second type of education at the academic level, what we call today symposiums, academic meetings, conferences. They had that in rich guys. When you saw the house, they had a large room, and they were sitting there and they were discussing various issues. It's this that we discuss right now. Protagoras was a dialogue that took place 432 in a rich guys, and they were sitting around and they were discussing. What's the purpose of education? Okay, this is the question that was asked. It is obvious from the dialogue that the primary role of education is to learn, read, and write, but at the same time find out what is good and what is bad, what is ethical and what is unethical, what is virtuous and what is unvirtuous. So there was no question about that. The question arose when if it was possible to discern ethical behavior by making people virtuous, by instilling into them ethos. Can we teach ethos? I'm going to skip a few slides here. Let me go straight to the question. Protagoras argues that if the students come to me I'll teach them, they will become better every day, and I'll teach them how to become ethical, how to have virtues. Here, look at the difference. Socrates say, sorry? Yeah. Can I continue? Yeah. Okay. What here comes the difference between Protagoras and Socrates. Protagoras argues that I can make you ethical, not teach you bad and good, what is bad and what is good. I can make you ethical. And Socrates said, you cannot make someone virtuous. Make. You can teach them what is good and what is bad. And that was all the debate. Now, and then the debate starts. Say, first of all, Protagoras say, I'm teaching sophism. Sophism means he defines it. I want to make sure that people become better every day. Better in what, Socrates say? How they can improve. And after the debate, the argument becomes they're going to become better so they can manage, use the word, manage their household, and at the same time, how they can manage the public affairs. I have a quote here, which is very important quote, because it uses the word eco, which is economics. And of course, the word nemo, which economics, which means management. And that's where the economics comes from. So he says, Protagoras, I can teach you, if I may use it, how to household management, but at the same time, public management. So that's the purpose of sophism. That's the purpose of what I'm doing. That's the purpose of my education. That's my purpose. That's my goal as a teacher. And then I have what I said before, where the economics is coming from. Then Socrates responds, you don't talk actually about making people better, but you're talking about teaching the people how to become good politicians and, of course, virtuous citizens. And Protagoras responds and says he was trapped in that dialectic method. He says, yes, that's what I'm doing. And then Socrates says, sarcastically and cynical, really very beautiful profession you possess, if you possess, because he says, I'm going to make you virtuous. And then the argument starts, and the discussion takes a very different turn, and they are forced to define what is virtue. But let's use my background as an economist and put everything methodologically. What is the argument made by Socrates? There are two hypotheses. In the beginning of the dialogue, Socrates says ethos or virtue cannot be taught. Protagoras says virtue can be taught. At the end of the dialogue, you will see there is a twist, and they define virtue as wisdom, and somehow they try to converge. But there is a contradiction there that I mentioned in the paper. Anyway, let me continue with that. What is we observe a professor at the university having an ethical behavior. And that's it. But this doesn't mean that he is ethical. You cannot tell if someone has ethos or virtue simply because he behaves according to the rules. And it's mentioned in the dialogue that in some cases, if the costs are less than the benefits, some people do not behave virtuous. So you cannot tell from the behavior of someone that he has virtue or not. But if you observe, of course, that his behavior is unethical, just once you can tell that this professor or this academic, he is not ethical. What's virtue? This is very surprising because it is at the end of the dialogue that they start define virtue, and there we're in trouble. Because Socrates and Protagoras says virtue is something that it's not one unit, it's not only one part. They most probably agree, then here it starts, I'm not sure, and many people are not sure whether they agree to all these five, but it seems that the dialogue tries to converge into a unanimity, if you want. So they define virtue as consisting of five things. They are very important. Holiness, for example, which has something, there is a Greek word for that. Anyway, I translate myself all this. Most probably they meant the natural or divine law. While justice, it's human law. There is somewhere there, and there is some, I concentrate only on Socrates and Protagoras, but there are other people that they participate in the dialogue, and there is a hint there. What's going to happen if the human law violates the divine or natural law? But it's left there. It's discussed later. Bravery or courage, for example, it's another thing that is discussed. Bravery at war is different from bravery as a good citizen. And prudence, in any case, these five elements of virtue, they are discussed, and it's very difficult to say whether there is one or many virtues. What are the rules? So why some people, in some cases, they are virtues, and in some other cases, they are not virtues. It's amazing that in the dialogue, as I said, I found a cost-benefit analysis. And this is done by Socrates. And I have the text, and I translate the text, and of course, I don't think anybody has interpreted this. But I have the Greek text next to the English text to understand that Socrates had something that we can call today a cost-benefit analysis. He defines the actions of the people as pleasurable and sad. And he says, if pleasures increase the, if all actions give you pleasure, then you choose the ones that give you the maximum. So you maximize pleasure. If that reminds you of maximizing utility, that's what it is. Okay? In Greek, it's eudaimonia, which means good spirit. If you have only sad things about your actions, then you minimize. So if your actions, you have to make choices, then, and all of these choices are sad, are unpleasurable, so you try to minimize. So you choose the actions that they give you the minimum sad things. And I have exactly next the Greek text. If pleasures are greater than sad, then you choose these actions. If pleasures are less than sad, do not choose any action. How this relates into ethics? If by being unethical, you derive more pleasures than sad, then you are unethical. That explains why some people, sometimes they're ethical and sometimes they're unethical. Why? Because some actions, they give them more pleasure than the cost. Let me use modern jargon. Some actions give them more less costs than the rewards, then you do that. But if the rewards are less than the cost, then you don't do it. It's amazing this. And of course, how this relates to the academic integrity. It's exactly that, the regulations. If there are very strict regulations, so the professors and the students will think twice to violate them, because the sads will be greater than the pleasures. I have 3 rules and I'll stop here. If you read and I didn't have the time to present all the details, I gave you just a sketch. From Socrates' dialogue, we have 3 rules that they are obvious. The first rule is for the academics: teach what you are assigned to teach and nothing else. This is obvious in the dialogue when Socrates says, if you want to learn music, for example, you go to musicians. If you want to learn medicine, you go to medical people. And Protagoras and Socrates, they have a debate and say some people, and it happens that in modern times, while they teach one subject, subconsciously maybe, they start talking about issues that do not relate to their course. And this is the rule number one for the academics, is teach what you were assigned to teach. If I'm assigned to teach mathematics, I have no right to say anything about women's rights, about politicians in the class. I'll teach mathematics. Second rule, the teacher's goal should be to make their students better at what they teach. There is a system, if you look all Europe and in all academic world, how to evaluate teachers. And in many cases, especially in high school, they evaluate teachers by seeing whether the students they are improving. And rule number 3, nobody can be made ethical or virtuous. You cannot. But they can become a person of wisdom by learning to weigh the current and future effects, positive or negative, of unethical behavior. And that's why we need regulations. That's why we need regulations to be implemented. And these 3 rules, they are obvious, and that's the lessons that we learn from Plato's Protagoras. I think I should stop here by saying it is obvious in the dialogue, and I think most people would agree with me, that you cannot make academics, students, you cannot make them virtuous or ethical, but you can teach them what is wrong and what is right. And you can teach them, if they do the wrong thing, they're going to be punished. And that's the end of the dialogue and the end of my lecture. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Gregory, for this very.
You have to, sorry, you have to speak up because I cannot hear you very well because.
Do you hear me?
You have to go close to the microphone, or you have to eat something so you can speak loud.
Okay. I hope you will hear me. So I will
Yeah.
louder. Yeah. Thank you very much for a very interesting lecture. So I'm sure that we learn a lot. We have and get some new insight to this very, very important topic. And now I'd like to invite you, dear colleagues, to make some or ask something, to make some questions, or maybe some comments. We'll check your chat. We do not have chat yet. Okay. You can ask also in Slovenian language. We try to translate. Okay. Okay. If not, maybe I can. Yes, we have.
There is a question I see here,
Yeah, I think it's more comment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a comment. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for inspired you.
Yes.
Okay.
If you read, by the way, if you read the paper, because still it's draft, and please send me comments on the paper, because now we have 30 minutes or something. It's very difficult to cover everything, but I think in the paper you will find all the details.
Okay. Good.
So I prefer you to send me, because I cannot hear you very well. So if you can type and send me comments and questions, that's better, I think.
Okay. So this is the invitation from Professor Gregory to read the paper and to make some comments on this paper.
Yeah, because it's very difficult to communicate online. Okay?
Okay. Yes, nice. Thank
you.
I have maybe one question.
Yeah.
Do you hear me? Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Considering the cost-benefit approach, discussed by Yes, and also you are economist. So my question is, how relevant is this model to understanding modern ethical decision in academia, where pressures for performance and publication often is in conflict with the ethical standards?
Yeah, I have Costas here. We didn't hear you very well because can you go slowly and
Considering this cost-benefit analysis.
yeah, I understood that. Yeah.
Yeah. How relevant is the old, let's say, Socrates model to understanding modern ethical decision and polemics in academia, in academic world, where pressures for performance and publication, especially for publication.
Yes, let me repeat if I understood what you asked for. How relevant this cost-benefit analysis in modern academic world?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's the essence. That's why I put it there. Because first of all, when I start teaching in Canada at the age of 27 years old, they gave me a lecture of how to teach and not to violate the regulations. So they told me that you should teach this way. Otherwise, if you violate the regulations and the rules, you'll be punished. This is very relevant exactly to what, I mean, they didn't say this way, you know, I'm cynical here, but that's what they meant. They gave me a book of 200 pages, and then I had to read the book, the regulations. They explained it, said, did you understand the rules? I understand because I had to sign the contract. And they say, I understand. Otherwise, I cannot sign the contract because there were legal matters. And I say, okay, this is what I presented. And if you read the paper, it's exactly what Socrates says. Socrates says, and of course, now we know as economists, if the costs of our behavior are or not, it's amazing. Socrates, he didn't talk only about the current costs. He's talking about the future cost as well. He says that that's the decision making, not only now, but in the future as well. So you calculate, and I say in the paper, the only difference is he didn't mention the discount rate. All others, they are there. So you calculate the current and the future. Think that you are 25 years old and you are a professor, you start your academic career. You have to be very careful, you have 50 years. Think that you are 80 years old, you don't really care. I mean, you care, but you don't, at the end of your career, then there is no much cost. My point is, and Socrates' point is, maybe we should not care if people are virtue or not. Let's leave it that to metaphysics, to religion. Let the religion make people virtuous. But here at the academic world, we like them to follow rules. And if they don't follow the rules, then they should know what the punishment is. And this is what I'm saying, it's very important because in many countries, especially in Greece, even though there are rules, they're not followed. There are no punishment. And that's why you have a lot of unethical behavior. This is not only in the academic world, but outside the academic world.
So thank you very much.
There is a question, there is a written question. I have my slave here. I have a slave here. Otherwise.
Okay, another question. Do you think
this is a very good question.
Yeah.
That's a very good question. I don't know who made it, but anyway.
My student.
Yeah, it's a very good question. The answer is I don't know, but Socrates, he believed. I mean, he has many examples. He says, for example, in front of the Pericles children. Pericles was the statesman of the golden age of Athens. there were two children of Pericles that were at this symposium. And Socrates used as an example. He says his father is a virtuous man. But what about their children? If you can teach virtue, then within the family, you have all the children to be virtuous, but they are not. Now, to answer this question, apart from I'm trying to guess what Socrates would think, he wouldn't say that it's not our business. He wouldn't say, follow the law, nothing else. He would say, for example, virtue is something that is subjective and relative. Herodotus said that. I mentioned that in the paper. Now, but what we care about, it's not if something is right or wrong in terms of divine law, but in terms of the civil law. And he proved that for 30 years after, in 399, when he had the chance to escape, and he says, if you read, I asked this student that asked the question to go and read Socrates' Apology. It's a very small leaflet, and you can find it in English, even in Slovenian. It's available for free. He will say, have a very good argument. I know it's not right that they condemned me, the court condemned me to death. And I know that I have the opportunity to escape because he's Henrik's friend. But if I violate the law, there will be no politia, no city, no democracy. So I have to drink the conium and die because the human law, they are very important. The same thing, I'm not sure, the same thing should be applied to the university. So he was optimistic man for the civil, about the ethics, most probably pessimistic. You're welcome.